I just wanted to start off the video with what I think about the case and Kohberger not having a reaction. I think that mentally there is something wrong with, him even going along, either telling his lawyer that he's innocent or having his lawyer put that out there, knowing that he was guilty. The fact that he had no emotion towards the families is just despicable. I really, even with if he did have any mental health that was stopping him from expressing remorse or even just acknowledging what he did wrong, that should have been brought through his lawyer, that he has an inability to express remorse. But the fact that he had no reaction while these victim statements were read out loud by the families is just wrong. And the GPS on his phone, the data on his phone, what was found, even if he had some sort of delusion of connection to any of the victims, that should have been said out his mouth so that people could understand more about why he would think that someone that he hadn't met wants him, or any of the delusion that he had. And by him not even explaining that, like, why were you stalking one of the victims in particularly, it's sad, because the family deserves to know what led him to take the lives of these young individuals that were well on their way in life. They were in college, they were doing what they were supposed to do. And when they decided to live in this outside dorm, they never thought that they would be put in danger. And like I said in one of my videos, with multiple people in the house and, their guests in themselves, it's hard to track, who's coming and going, if someone's still in there or what. And it's just sad. The whole thing is sad. My condolences goes out to the family. With him not explaining the data on his phone and why he was in the vicinity of the crime, but him saying that he's not guilty. The fact that he let his lawyer say that he wasn't, knowing that he was guilty, knowing that he did, in fact, commit these crimes. He showed some sort of fear when the death penalty was put on the table. That's when he went with the plea deal. But he should have, from the very beginning, instead of having the families like dragging this whole thing out, he should have said that he was guilty, and he should have told his lawyer to change his not guilty to guilty. And this is, the sad part is they'll never know why. And he himself probably doesn't know why, because he was in a state of delusion, stalking one of the victims. And even, social media, be careful out there. Anyone young, even if you're older, be careful out there with putting your, creating a social media presence. There are some people that get it confused, and, they stalk pages and they create this delusion in their mind. And from my last two videos on Bryan Kohberger, it seemed as though he was under academic pressure, but what he was doing in his spare time, it wasn't good, because it led him to believe that it was right for him to take the lives of these young people. And so just be careful out there on social media. Anyone in college, just even if you're an adult, just be careful with putting your pictures out there and putting so much of your life on social media. It's not the victim's fault. It's not the female's fault that was stalked by him. But there are people out there that get it confused, and they get these ideas in their mind, and they commit heinous acts. And so my condolences goes out to the family. I will be reading an article and piecing this up with this, but I just wanted to give my thoughts. Even if he did have an excuse, it would have just added to the fact that he has great mental health needs, and he needs to still be able while in jail to get help, so that him getting that help in jail is basically letting anyone know that this sort of behavior is not good. It's not acceptable, and acts like this could ruin and will ruin your life. I think he was in college himself, and like I said, he had academic pressure upon him, but he was not handling it well. For him to go out that night and do what he did, it's just terrible. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Endless Courage. So I'm coming to you with the update on the Bryan Kohberger case. I'll be reading from the CBS News article by Carrie Bryan. So the title is Bryan Kohberger sentenced to 4 life terms in prison without parole for Idaho murders. So Bryan Kohberger was sentenced to 4 life sentences without the possibility of parole on Wednesday after he pleaded guilty to the murders of 4 University of Idaho students in 2022. The surviving roommates and families of the victims delivered emotional statements at the sentencing hearing held in a court in Boise. When given the opportunity to speak, Kohberger declined to do so. Kohberger pleaded guilty earlier this month to the murders of Ethan, Xana, Madison, and Kaylee, and I apologize if I didn't say their names right, as part of a plea deal that spared him from the death penalty. He was in the courtroom Wednesday wearing an orange prison jumpsuit and listened as the families of the victims confronted him with powerful statements. The hearing lasted about 3 hours with more than a dozen family impact statements read aloud. The 4 victims were killed at a home in Moscow, Idaho during the early morning hours of November 13th, 2022. Kohberger was arrested at his parents' house in Pennsylvania 6 weeks later. Prosecutors said that if the case had gone to trial, they would have used DNA evidence that linked Kohberger to the crime scene, his online purchase history, surveillance video of Kohberger's car, and cell phone data that showed him in the vicinity of the killings. His motive is still unknown. Judge Stephen Hxllo spoke emotionally for several minutes before sentencing Kohberger. He called Kohberger a faceless coward and said he was in great awe of the family members who had given statements. He also criticized Kohberger for failing to show remorse or regret about the slayings. He said he could not legally force Kohberger to explain why he had committed the slayings, and said he did not believe Kohberger would answer the question truthfully anyway. There is no reason for these crimes that could approach anything resembling rationality, Hxllo said. No conceivable reason could make any sense, and in the end, the more we struggle to seek explanation for the unexplainable, the more we try to extract a reason, the more power and control we give to him. In my view, the time has come to end Mr. Kohberger's 15 minutes of fame. After speaking, Hxllo sentenced Kohberger to 4 consecutive sentences of life in prison without the possibility of parole. He was also sentenced to 10 years in prison on the burglary charge. Kohberger did not react after the sentence was read aloud. For each charge, Kohberger was also charged $50,000. He also owes a civil penalty of $5,000 payable to the family of the victim for each murder charge. Kohberger will be required to submit DNA as part of the plea deal, Hxllo said. Kohberger has waived his right to an appeal, but can file a notice of appeal, Hxllo said, though that notice might violate the plea agreement. About 2 hours of the hearing were dedicated to statements read by the loved ones of the victims. The first victim impact statement was read on behalf of Bethany Fuke, who had lived with the murdered students and called 911 after finding their bodies. That was the worst day of my life, and I know it will always be, Fuke said in this statement, which was read by friend Emily Allant. Fuke added that she checks her room every night to ensure there is no one hiding in the space. She says she has struggled to sleep since the slayings. Allant cried as she read the statement while Kohberger showed no emotion. Dylan Mortensen, the other surviving roommate, was the next to speak. She was visibly distraught and took several moments to collect herself before beginning to read her statements through tears. She said she has struggled with panic attacks since the killings. I was barely 19 when he did this, Mortensen said. We had just celebrated my birthday at the end of September. I should have been figuring out who I was. I should have been having the college experience and starting to establish my future. Instead, I was forced to learn how to survive the unimaginable. Scott Larmy, Madison Mogen's stepfather, then read a victim impact statement on behalf of himself and Mogen's mother, Karen Larmy. He remembered Mogen as someone who always brought us joy and who prioritized spending time with her family before she was taken senselessly and brutally in a sudden act of evil. This world was a better place with her in it, Larmy said. Karen Larmy had a second statement read on her behalf by her lawyer. Mogen's paternal grandmother, Kim Chinley, also spoke, thanking prosecutors and law enforcement officials for bringing this case to closure. Mogen's family, Ben Mogen, said that his daughter had already earned all of the credits necessary for her degree at the time of the slayings and wiped his eyes as he spoke. Maddie was my only child that I ever had. She's the only great thing I ever did and the only thing I was ever proud of, Ben Mogen said. He recounted taking her to concerts with friends and shared a Father's Day card that he said was the last thing his daughter ever wrote to him, where she written, "I can't wait till we can hang out again soon." So that's the conclusion of this video. So Bryan Kohberger is sentenced to 4 life terms in prison without parole for the Idaho murders. My condolences goes out to the families. Like I said, it was hard covering this case. They were young and it was a senseless crime. And now he's paying for it. He's in jail and he will not have any possibility of parole. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Click the bell to be notified.